Well, welcome to week 3 of our programme for reading through the Bible in a year. And if this is a new habit for you, then like all new habits, it's quite hard to establish. So well done you if you're this far already. You've done 2 weeks, and that's a great start. This week, we're looking at 3 different books of the Bible. We're staying in Job. In fact, we're going to finish Job. It's going to reach its conclusion this week. We're reading chapters 27 through to 42. Which will mean 1 book down, only 65 to go. And most of them are shorter than Job. Now, early on, we'll read a speech about wisdom in verse 28, which talks about it being more precious than jewels and precious metal. But where do we find it? God alone knows. And his evaluation is recorded for us in that speech. We get to hear a new voice in the conversation as well, a young man called Elihu. He's the youngest of the crowd. He says, look, I'm really reluctant to speak and I didn't want to say anything. And then he does nothing but speak for 6 chapters. Well, mercifully, God intervenes and speaks to Job, the very thing that Job has been wanting all the way through. And God quizzes Job on what he knows, what he understands. A perspective is restored. Job is humbled and has to say, I was talking about things I knew nothing about. Now, remember, as we read Job, this is an example of wisdom literature. Wisdom literature is not a series of promises. So if you read something like Job or something like Proverbs, what we're seeing aren't cast iron promises. This will happen in every situation. These are principles, as in guiding principles, in that this is often the case, but it's not always the case. And some of the advice that Job's friends give is helpful, and some of it isn't. And wisdom is about discerning which is which. Further than that, it involves working out when to say things, and when you do say things, how to say things. We all need more wisdom. I fear that sometimes I'm a bit too much like one of Job's friends. And as we reach the end of Job, we're reminded, among other things, that there isn't this direct correlation between sin and suffering in life. Bad people sometimes seem to live a charmed life, and good people might seem to go through all sorts of afflictions. If you're ever tempted to think that you are being punished because, it must have been something I did, remind yourself that God does not treat us as our sins deserve. And as a final thought on Job, we also see a prototype, if you like, of Jesus. We see an innocent man put to suffering. Then we turn to Genesis. We've got just 2 chapters of Genesis this week, but what chapters? Chapter 12 is fundamental to understanding the Bible's unfolding story, because all these books add up to one big narrative. God promises Abraham land, descendants and blessing, even going so far as to say all families on earth will be blessed through you. And that promise to Abram, which will be reinforced quite soon later on in Genesis, is an important event in the Bible. As you read it, be taking note of that. And then finally, we are continuing in Matthew's biography in the life of Jesus. We're reading chapters 11 to 15. And that embraces a lot of material. There are the doubts of John the Baptist, wondering, is Jesus really the one we're all waiting for? And then after his reassurance, his death. And what a grisly death that is. We see some of Jesus' best known miracles, feeding large numbers of people, walking on water and the like. And lots of parables and stories are told. If you've got one of those books that has a different colour for the words of Jesus in it, you're going to see a lot of his words in those sections, including a story that Jesus told about wisdom being more precious than pearls. Now, we've heard something like that somewhere before, haven't we? So have a great week. Keep going with your reading. You're doing really well. And don't forget that we'll meet again on Zoom at 5 o'clock on Sunday afternoon for an hour to talk about what we read this week. But in the meantime, I do pray that this will be a really good week for you and that you'll be blessed through doing this, that not only your knowledge would increase, but your love for God too. Take care.